In this episode of The Prisoner's Dilemma, I'm going to try something different for an introduction. And that is to introduce our guest in song, or at least her first name anyway. Joining us today is Welcome to The Prisoner's Dilemma, where we discuss striking the balance between the passion for your art or your craft and paying the rent. Today we have a very special guest, Anna Malatinszky. Her vision is an animation museum, and it's not just one studio or like you would normally see or just one particular kind of animation. It's kind of the whole gamut. Is that right, Anna?
Absolutely right. Yeah, so we're in the US, and here in the US, there's not currently an animation museum, or at least not a dedicated animation museum. You'll see sort of independent museums set up for individual studios, where you go to the Walt Disney Family Museum, if you've ever been up in the San Francisco area, or the Academy Museum for Motion Pictures, and they have sort of individual exhibits that sort of travel through and cycle. But there's not been a dedicated space to tell the story of animation or the people behind the films that we know and love. And so my hope was really to create a space that I would like to go to, where I can go and see the sort of art behind all of these wonderful, wonderful projects that we've seen throughout our lives, and to sort of learn about how they're created and the folks that make it happen.
Yeah, I think it's so cool. And
Yeah.
and what I like about it, and you mentioned the Disney Museum, is the Disney Museum is not in LA. It's in the Bay Area. It's a beautiful, beautiful museum. And I'm hoping maybe down the line we could do another episode with a good friend of mine who lives in a neighborhood of mine here in Portland, Matt Arnold, who is actually a museum designer. Maybe we could do some live brainstorming, if you find that helpful. But the thing I liked about the Disney Museum is that it's away from kind of the center of the industry. It's away from LA. And I know you don't have like a final destination for where the museum will be, but from what I've heard, it's away from LA. I like that because it's like a journey or a trip or something. Once you get away from your home base, there's a new perspective. And so you're based in Atlanta, Anna?
Yeah, and the hope was really to create the museum here, partially just because I'm here, and since I'm going to be working on it, it makes sense for it to be up close. But yeah, I mean, part of it is exactly what you're saying. I think there's this pervasive idea that film and animation specifically sort of lives and dies in Hollywood. There's so much more to it than that. I'm from Hungary originally, and there's a rich history of animation in Hungary, throughout Europe, throughout Asia, throughout really all of the world, and certainly throughout the different parts of America. Whether that's in Portland or in Atlanta or in the Bay Area or up in New York, there are these sort of rich communities of artists who really love to come together and make these beautiful projects. And I'd hate to, keep that sort of contained within just the LA area. Not to say that there couldn't also be something there, but I think I'd love to see something happening outside of there.
Yeah, for sure. So have you given any thought to, what the museum would encompass as far as like a worldwide view of the history of animation?
Yeah, so the building that I've been looking at, I've been working a little bit with Atlanta Public Schools to try to facilitate the recycling of one of their unused properties at this, just here in the Atlanta area, the metro area. There's this gorgeous high school that's been sitting empty for quite a few years now. It's in generally pretty good condition, definitely needs some rehab, but it's 54,000 square feet of just unused space, and it's right in a middle of this super walkable neighborhood. And so my dream is to have this space filled up with art and different tracks that you could sort of take through the museum to learn about, the history of animation as a whole, the history of American animation, the process for 2D, the process for 3D, the process for stop motion. Maybe have some interactive exhibits in there for people to walk through and sort of get a sense for what it is that animators do on a day to day, or how these films get made. And I'd really love for the community to be able to walk through, not just the animation community, but for non-animators, non-artists, just people who are animation enthusiasts, to come through and get excited about the art that we make.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I've noticed you mentioned 2D animation. I've noticed that that's kind of coming back, like not only in at studios, but kids that are coming up. I've been doing more like workshops and teaching and like summer camps now that I'm kind of aging out of the industry, to be quite frank. And you know, the younger people that are involved, they're totally into. They want to learn the old way, like when the flipping paper and all that stuff. And then so I find that fascinating. But it kind of makes sense. We've had this CG huge boom for a couple decades, and a lot of people complain it looks the same or whatever, which is going to happen. It's people emulate what's successful that comes before it. But I went to this Sundance Film Festival a couple weeks ago, and actually recorded a couple interviews for this podcast, Prisoner's Dilemma, which I'm hoping that you would enjoy. It's animation centric, but the short films. There was kind of equal amount of 2D and CG films, which I thought was great. That is kind of coming back into play.
And I think you're so right, because it is the sort of first form of animation that we learn. And I think it's not just animators or animation enthusiasts that learn it, right? Like, think about the first time that you made a flip book, that probably your dad like sat you down and did a little doodle of a stick man flying a kite or something like that. And you flipped through the pages of a sketchbook and saw that move. And there's a magic to that. And I think you're right. I think there's this resurgence of almost a grassroots feel in the arts and animation community. And I don't know if this is a pushback against AI or generative AI. I don't know if it's just sort of the state of the industry in general that's making people want to make things with their hands again. But I love it. I love to see it. It's funny that you say that you're aging out of the industry, because in a way I feel like I'm aging out of the industry. And I'm only in about 10 years now, but I think a lot of people feel that way, especially right now. Obviously times are still hard within the animation community, and there's not as many jobs out there as there once were, and studios are treating us differently. So I think it's really lovely to see people coming together, sharing something that feels tactile, something that a human hand had a job in making.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, I love the name Prisoner's Dilemma. I want to touch on that for just a second. I'm not sure where this came from you, but I'd love to hear about it. I think for me, obviously, I assume you're referring to the sort of game theory of the Prisoner's Dilemma.
That's right. That's right. I love it because it applies to a lot of different just aspects of being human and relationships, and so tying it about to animation business, and you I'm sure aware of this, having your own company, that it's all about relationships. You'll hear that from people going into the business, and so this game theory of the prisoner's dilemma, which is a lot of people have equated it with karma, and um, the idea is that you have two prisoners in a cell or in the same prison, and they're kind of asked to rat on each other to reduce their sentences. And so, if you do that, your sentence will be reduced in a selfish way, but you're you got to consider the relationship once you get out in the world. You're out in the world, and what that means. And so it can scale. It can be a friendship, a marriage, a business relationship, and it scales all the way up to a global. Our relationship with the planet, how we treat the planet and nature, is going to come back to bite us, or it's going to help society in the long run. Depending on our attitude towards it. So That's what I love about it. And it seems like everyone that I this open up that discussion with, they respond to it, you know. And right now, I think the big in the industry, and I think I get a sense that people are sick of talking about it, but the prisoner's dilemma right now is AI, like, the machine learning and large language models and how they're helpful and how they hurt us. But the flip side of that is that there is this kind of innate uh, feeling to go back to the old ways, to like handcrafted, hands-on, um, get away from the devices, basically.
Think that's a really good point. I think that's something we forget a lot as creatives is that we also need creative rest.
Hmm.
And I think that comes really, that's it's difficult to find as an artist because so much of the things that you're doing for work are also the things that normally you would do to recharge, right? I would go and draw a picture or whatever, and that would in theory recharge me. But it's really hard to do that and to separate that from the thing that we've turned into a career.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to spend time, out in nature or just trying something that you're bad at, wood carving or going to a museum, enjoying somebody else's art, watching a movie that you really enjoy. But I think The Prisoner's Dilemma is a really interesting name because I feel that very deeply. I think especially right now, and whether that's with AI specifically or just sort of the way that we treat each other, I think within the industry is changing, right? I think originally when animation was being born to the world, if you will, it was a lot of small teams of people who were looking out for each other and scrambling for money, so that there was maybe a little bit more of the sense of like needing to look out for each other. And now I think it's hard to find doing the right thing as sexy as fame and money. It's just not. And it's, you know that it's the right thing and you know that you should be looking out for the people around you and the people that you're working with. And it's hard. It's hard to want to do that. And I think especially when you're presented with something easy like generative AI, if you're a non-artist and you have the choice between spending 10,000 hours learning how to draw, or you can type a prompt into a computer and it can spit that out reasonably well. If you don't really care about the end result that much, it feels like an easy shortcut, and it's easy to sort of forget about the ramifications of that, whether that's the jobs lost or the environmental impacts of it. And it's, I think the debate is relatively new. Obviously, AI isn't, generative AI isn't, right? AI art has been around since the 70s. That's been a long-standing process that engineers have been trying to develop over time. And it's just now that it's become so accessible to everybody, and it really feels like this period of time right now is important in defining what a consumer will accept as a final product. And the reality of it is, I think if we're not pushing for wanting things to look good, if we're okay just taking a shortcut and having it look just okay, we're going to end up with less qualified artists. We're going to end up with oversaturated markets of art that just doesn't look good or offer anything new to the world. And I think that's a huge disappointment, and we're losing out on so much really vibrant creativity that is out there.
Hmm. Wow, Hannah,
All
that's a
right, that's
great
a
perspective.
whole
No,
change.
no, it's true. But it is a taste, because it doesn't matter which tools you use. If it's easy, and more and more people with maybe not so much art, art training or skill or whatever, use it, it's gonna, and like it reminds me of the Impressionists and the Cubists and guys like Duchamp that kind of made fun of art. They just took, if art started to become this thing where everyone got used to it, there are these rebels that kind of will like, show a different way of looking at things with using just ordinary objects or a style of painting that people are first shocked. So I'm hoping, so I think maybe that's what's happening as a reaction against this whole, CG environment and the aid of machines.
I have not asked the theoretical aid of machines, right? In theory, it's a tool and it should be used and used well. And I think you hear this again and again where people describe AI as a tool. And there are some AI tools out there that have genuinely been helpful to society.
Hmm.
I love spell check. Love that.
Oh
It's what
yeah.
a tool. but I do think it's where it starts to take the place of creativity. We're no longer using it to aid us in doing the mundane or in doing the things that don't give us life. There's this sort of subset of skills that breathe life into everything we do, and I can't I can't stand idly by and feel okay about machine taking the place of that of human connection and of expression.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell me a little bit like how you got interested in animation, Anna, and I'm so happy that you're on the show because I'm trying to get more women animators on. And and if you look back at the history, some of the pioneers were women, and I don't know why that was. I mean, maybe there's that kind of the creative element to it, or they had more free time or something because of expectation. I don't know. Like, what do you think about that?
Surely, I don't think that there is an overwhelming majority of female pioneers to the art form, and I do think while it's really great to see names like Lotta Reiniger
Mm,
entering the sort of cultural zeitgeist as we sort of talk about animation. I wouldn't say necessarily that women were at any sort of advantage in trying to find their place in this industry. And I think it is like any form of entertainment, it can be sometimes difficult for women to make a name for themselves without being pushed to do things that they're uncomfortable with. And I think especially because we still, in America specifically, we still have this sort of mentality of, if you have a kid, it's the mom's job to take maternity leave. Dad doesn't get paternity leave, so dad continues to advance his career. Mom takes a couple of years off, comes back, and tries to pick up from there. Things have shifted. So I do think it's maybe not complete coincidence that you've not had as many female animators on, as I assume is that complete coincidence that we haven't had as many female coworkers.
yeah.
But I think certainly as we progress as a society and as we create more opportunities, I think for women to continue to work, whether they choose to have children or whether they choose to continue working throughout their entire lives, or if they sort of age in and out of the industry. I really love to see, and I do love to see, the increase of maybe prolific female artists.
Mhm.
These. I've sort of lost track of what your question was. I'm so sorry. I just kind of went off on a tangent there.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
not sure if it had one. So it started out with saying, how did you
how did
become
I?
interested in
Um,
animation as an art form? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I grew up with a lot of animation in my life, and I think specifically a lot of global animation in my life, a lot of European and a lot of American, and honestly some Japanese, Chinese in the mix as well. By nature of, like I said, I was born in Hungary, so I was exposed very early on to Ukrainian and Croatian and to Hungarian and French animation. So that was a lot of what I watched as a kid, and coming over to the States, that was a big shift to see the overwhelming majority of that be Disney and DreamWorks. But also to see sort of these smaller studios that are huge in numbers across the states. So when it came time to graduate high school, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I loved to draw, and I liked math well enough to think I might be an architect. And then I had a teacher tell me that I wasn't good enough at math to be an architect, so I figured I'd be an animator. And I got started quite early on. I'd had an interest in animation. I had started it on Blender, which is actually CG software that I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah, yeah.
I started using that probably at the age of 8 or 9. My dad had brought it home from a sale at a Circuit City or something like that. um, and I just got interested in the idea of being able to make the world that I wanted to see in a computer screen. And so that drove me then to apply to a couple of animation schools. I ended up attending Savannah College of Art and Design down in Savannah, Georgia, where we learned animation from pencil and paper all the way up to sort of digital tools that I use today. And I just stuck with it. I had a really great professor turned friend who introduced me to the world of 2D effects.
Mm.
That really shifted my world. I got really excited about making things blow up on screen.
Ha ha
Uh,
ha.
And that's just kind of where I've stuck for the last 10 years. Until my shift over into sort of the professional end of it. And that's I opened Line Folk Studios here in Atlanta, which is a very, very small studio, but we do a lot of exciting motion graphics and 2D animation work for local businesses and for some larger studios that just offload work. And so that's been the last 2, maybe 3 years of my life has been running that and stepping over a little bit more onto the production directing side of things, as opposed to being, locked to a screen drawing for 12 hours a day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. I have my first one of my first sketchbooks was speaking of explosions, drawing explosions, was is a plane like flying overhead, and then it goes um, behind some mountains and crashes, and then you see the explosion coming up.
Yeah.
And it was just, and I realized like after I did it, I was like, wait a minute, this is animation. And why don't I just have it crash into the mountain? It's because I've seen it so many times in like low budget television shows where they don't want to, you don't want to actually crash the plane, or they don't have the means to make it look like it's crashing into the mountain. So they have it go behind, and there's obviously this big, fireball that comes up from behind the mountain. You're supposed to think that, uh, well, you see where I'm going, but
Yeah, it's really funny to see when everybody's moment was where that clicked, where you kind of go, oh my God, people do this for money forever. And I think mine was watching Mulan.
hmm,
There's this scene where near the beginning of the movie where Mushu comes to life and he rises out of the smoke. He goes, "I live," and just watching the smoke roll out. I remember thinking to myself, "Oh my God, somebody drew this. Somebody drew this in the same way that I draw, my little flip books or whatever. Somebody's job was to make this, and what
yeah,
a cool job that is."
I know, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that I had a awestruck moment when I want the first Fantasia. There's that all kind of like the earth forming, and there's like hot lava and all this stuff, and such a cool blend of effects. I could tell that they were using some kind of weird mirror distortion for heat. And the thing that blew me away is they had these like fire
Oh my
whirlwinds, or
God,
like
yeah.
fire tornadoes coming out, and you could see that they weren't pencil, they had painted, like someone had painted those things, and it just like that opened up the variety of techniques you could use for the art form, and I was kind of hooked after that.
That's the coolest thing, right? Because you're getting to see the world through somebody else's lens, not just in taking pictures, but somebody is expressing to you the way that they see the world. Ah, that's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, and then that you could create worlds that no one's ever seen before, Yeah, and so how long did you live in Hungary, Anna?
So, not very long.
Hmm.
I came over when I was 5 months old with my parents. We moved back and forth for the first 10 years or so of my life, where they just weren't sure if they were going to settle here in the US or move back to Hungary, or move back to the US, move back to Hungary. By the time I was in middle high school, we were here consistently. So we would go back for summers, spend, 2, 3 months out of the year in Europe, and then come back here to the DC area. And then by the time I was in college, I was, just struggling to make my own way over there. So at this point, I go back probably once, twice a year, a couple of weeks at a time. It's nowhere near as frequent or for the lengths that I used to, but still a little bit of home in there.
Yeah, yeah. Um, when's the last time you were there?
That would have been summer of this past year. I'm going back in July, and then again for Christmas, New Year's.
Yeah. Where's that in relation to the Balkans?
Close.
Yeah, yeah. I'm planning on going to Albania for a project. So I've not been in that area of the world yet.
Yeah, it's close. Everything is super drivable. I think
Hmm.
it's very funny to come to the States and have, your closest Walmart be, 30 minutes away or whatever. People easily drive for groceries 45 minutes. And if you drive 2 hours in Hungary, you're in a different country.
Yeah, yeah.
That's small.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's fun. We got to travel a lot as kids. My parents really felt like that was important for us to, take these family road trips and go through these different countries and experience these different cultures and flavors. And and art, right? Art and architecture, and get to walk through these churches and these museums, and get to see the way that people express themselves across different parts of the world.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that now. Maybe was a little less excited about leaving all my friends for the summer break when I
Mm,
was a teenager, but certainly now it feels good.
yeah. What do you think typifies Hungarian animation?
It's a lot of folk art
Hmm.
turned animated, right? It's a lot of it is influenced by these folk patterns, and a lot of that is fabric design.
Cool.
So we have this pattern called module, and it's a lot of flat, very graphic florals, or different leaves and stuff that are often printed on things like aprons or on traditional folk clothing or stuff like that. And so one of the most famous Hungarian series is called Magyar Népmesék, Hungarian folk tales.
Hmm.
And they just took well over 100 Hungarian folk tales and animated them as little shorts. And they're not super complex animation. They're not anything crazy or revolutionary, but it was just a way to, I guess, reconnect Hungary with its sort of folk roots and expose children to them very early on in the form of childhood stories. And I think they're just super cool to see. I recommend for anyone to check them out. I think they're super super fun.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Could you spell the name of that style that you said, the pattern style?
Matyo.
EYO.
Yeah, that's the pattern itself. And so we don't refer to animation in that style, but certainly the fabric pattern is called
Okay,
that.
cool.
And then Hungarian folk tales is the, I think, English version of that. And you can find that on YouTube or anywhere really that plays videos.
Yeah. Did you have a first flip book?
A first flip book, as
Yeah.
in one that I made
Yeah.
or one that I was shown.
One that you made.
I think my dad sat down with me probably when I was like 3 or 4 to show me how to make any flip books, and I'm almost certain that it was a stick figure with a kite,
Hmm.
just sort of flying it back and forth.
Yeah.
But God, I'm trying to think. I had a lot of, so it'd be difficult to tell you which one was the first necessarily. I think the kite really stands out as the one that just stuck in my mind, I guess.
Yeah. That's great. I did one where I realized that okay, I have a certain sense of wanting to entertain people with drawings is when I was working at a record store, I did a guy, it was probably like a stick figure, but with the head, he had long hair and he was head banging, so you could see his head, the hair kind of like flipping around.
That's how
So
I
you
know
could,
you're a character animator. Yeah.
what's that?
That's how I know you're a character animator.
Yeah, yeah. It's a so his head banging, and then his head just falls off and bounces off the screen, and the body falls down, and people couldn't stop laughing at it, and so I felt my nerd power was growing, from that day on.
That's so real. The first thing you make someone, have an emotional response, I think, to something that you made, it's a little addicting.
Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then what was your first professional experience
Ooh,
in drawing or in animation?
sure. That's a curious question. I think I sold professional in what way? I guess how do you define professional?
Oh, well, it
Like
could
a
be selling a piece of art, or it could be a job, like your first job in animation.
Sure. I sold art on occasion, for a couple of bucks as a kid, and that felt nice to make allowance money off of sketches.
Yeah,
When I was in college, I worked all through college, and so there were little individual sort of freelance jobs that I would do while I was trying to get my animation degree. And when I graduated, I got my first job at Cartoon Network here in Atlanta. As a meme animator was the way they told me that position. I think my title was something a little bit more formal, like online producer or something like that. But they
hmm.
told me the job was to animate memes of Cartoon Network characters, and those were going to go out to the social channels or as bumpers or whatever. And I ended up doing a lot of really fun and truly silly work with them. You know, some of it was animation, some of it was still pieces, some of it was making character themed donuts and doing photo shoots with those. But it was fun. It was a really great first job, sort of softly entering the industry. And then after that, I got a job with Bento Box Entertainment as an effects animator, and from there I was just hooked on effects.
Oh, okay. Was that in where's Bento Box based?
They also have an Atlanta studio here. I think
Oh,
they're
I didn't know that.
in LA. Yeah.
All right. Oh yeah, and so tell me about Atlanta. I've always heard, everyone says it's cool. It's, they always say good things about it. Um and but you also have the image of the South, for better or for worse. But there's also, I understand, there's a gorgeous coastline. Some friends have shot movies there. Um and um so tell me about that. How do you like it?
Love Atlanta. I love Atlanta. I've visited LA. I've never lived out there,
Mhm.
I think to compare the two feels so silly. Atlanta is in the middle of a forest, and so we're constantly surrounded by these gorgeous old growth trees. And you know, you drive sort of 30 minutes to get to state parks and stuff like that that are gorgeous canyons and like really great walking trails and terrible rivers that you can tube down. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily if anyone knows what shooting the hooch is. It's tubing down the Chattahoochee River. And
Shooting the hooches, did you say?
yes,
Yeah.
it's where you take a bunch of inner tubes, you tie them together, you take a couple of beers. I'm sorry, you take a couple of age appropriate beverages with your friends, and you float down the river for the afternoon, assuming the E. coli levels aren't too high. So
Yeah.
just beforehand. But the thing that I really love about Atlanta is how many pockets of sort of communities that there are.
Mm.
It's a lot of smaller, it really feels like a lot of smaller neighborhoods that are just sort of connected by these interstates, which is a little bit of a funky feeling. I think increasingly Atlanta is focusing on walkability, and there's been a project in the works for quite a few years now. I want to say well over a decade, but I would look it up called the Beltline, which is a sort of walking trail that connects individual neighborhoods or communities within Atlanta with for walking or for biking or rollerblading or taking your dog out or going on a date or whatever. And it's been really great to see the community response to that. You know, people want to be able to walk to their favorite store or to grab a drink at the end of the day or to grab breakfast in the morning. And so I think it really represents a little bit of what my experience personally with Atlanta has been, which is that there's these vibrant cultures that exist within a metropolitan area, and those are tied together in a way, and you get to have a little bit of each of them and immerse yourself in those different areas.
Yeah.
Certainly, as far as art goes, there still is an animation community here in spite of the last couple of years, which is amazing to see. And certainly a lot of animators. I'm sure part of that is due to the number of colleges in the area that have animation programs. And so there's a lot of young talent that comes out here, but also just because everything's cheaper in the South. So people want to come out here and shoot movies. There's a
Mm.
parking lot around the corner from my house that has film crews in there every other weekend, just shooting something. There's certainly a big industry for it here in Georgia.
Yeah, I've also heard that Nashville is kind of, a lot of people are moving to Nashville for the same reasons, I think. It's cheaper
Yeah.
and so is there a Hungarian neighborhood in Atlanta?
No, devastatingly not. There's Hungarian individuals that I've gotten to connect with, and I'm desperate for good Hungarian food outside of what I cook in my own kitchen.
Yeah.
Outside of the occasional traveling restaurant or whatever, there's not a lot of exposure to Hungarian food. To
Hmm.
be fair, the population of Hungary is the same as the population of the state of Georgia, so I wouldn't expect that many Hungarians to have settled here anyway.
Right, right,
Uh,
right.
but
So,
there's a really diverse community here outside of my tiny little country.
yeah. What are your favorite Hungarian dishes to prepare? And
Yeah, classics I think is paprika shirke, chicken paprika, paprika sauce chicken.
yeah.
It's like very simple. You know, it's a lot of like peasant food, I would say. So it's easily attainable and something that you could cook on the go if you needed to. We have these big cauldrons that we hang over fires that are easy to carry on horseback if you're nomadic. as the history of Hungary is.
Hmm.
Uh, in that you would cook things like goulash, which is like a stew made with, beef or pork and a bunch of onions and carrots and all good things and just unimaginable amounts of paprika. That's really it. I think paprika might be our national dish.
That's I think I heard Adam Carolla of all people explain that how to make the dish, and just a couple weeks ago.
Which one? The goulash?
What's that?
Goulash or paprikash? Which one?
Paprikash.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty simple recipe, and there's a lot of different versions of it, but it's I think every culture has their own version of chicken and sauce over rice.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's chicken adobo is the Filipino
Mhm.
classic dish. Yeah, the sauce is usually, something that is like ferment like vinegar or something or and then some kind of salt uh component or spice. Yeah, yeah. It does seem like every culture has that.
Getting me hungry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. What other kind of foods do you like? Yeah.
What other kind of foods do you
Yeah.
like? Hungarian specifically, or
Just anything.
I love fruit. I don't know. I love a good tart fruit. Something like a
Mm.
passion fruit or a grapefruit or something like that. I love. Let me think. I love a good soup. A good pho or like a kimchi jjigae or something. And I don't know. I was vegetarian for a lot of my life, so I do. Even though I eat meat now, I tend to lean more veggie in my choices. So I mean, who doesn't love a spaghetti bolognese or something? So I'll just throw in some impossible meat now.
Yeah, yeah. There's this bad flu that's going around here, and I got it pretty bad about a month and a half ago, and afterwards just decided to do a little bit of a fast, but also coming off of it, be vegan, or as much as I could. I've been eating fish now and then, but yeah, that's really interesting. It made me feel great. It was like, you know, I guess maybe it's inflammation or something that it reduces. And so I felt totally loose and um, there's kind of an energy aspect to it. It's not like I had more energy, but it was just somehow more even.
Kind of nuts how much fresh food will make you feel good in your body. And I will say it's a lot. I think it's a lot easier to be vegan these days than it was when I was growing up. I went vegetarian when I was 3, in spite of my parents' best wishes, and stuck with that for something like 18 years. After that, and the process of going back to eating meat was a slow and difficult one, and honestly, not one that I think I necessarily needed to have done given the food landscape today. Atlanta's
Hmm.
got awesome food and some really, really great vegan and vegetarian options too. And I don't know, I think I could do it again. And there's
Yeah,
something to what you're saying. I think there's a lot of it matters where you get your food from, I think. And I think especially with
absolutely.
the farming practices of the greater United States, it's not always awesome meat that we're putting in your bodies.
Right, right. Yeah, you really got to be careful. I mean, and you got to be, I mean, yeah, you want to be healthy, you have to be mindful of where the food comes from. That's the whole thing. My wife has a company that produces organic, non-GMO tortillas, and it was one of the hardest things was to find organic corn, like to find in the U.S., non-GMO organic corn. But they finally found it. They use it, and it just the taste. You can't beat the taste of food that's grown without any kind of pesticides or any kind of like mass produced techniques. You know, um, yeah.
This is a little off topic, but you just reminded me of a friend who talked often when he was getting his cat about how people would name their cats just the most ridiculous names. And to prove the point, he named his cat GMO Free Corn. And that is the cat's legal name to this day, GMO for short.
That's cute. That's funny.
I was laughing at your West tortillas. It wasn't that, but
Yeah.
GMO.
So how did you get into woodworking, Anna?
I got into woodworking because I couldn't afford the kind of furniture that I wanted in college. And I realized that as long as I could bike home with a couple of materials from Home Depot or beg a friend with a truck to help me out, that I could get the pieces home to build my own shelves and cabinets and whatever.
Yeah.
And so those were poor man's cabinets, really poorly assembled. And then I figured I might as well start to do it well. So as soon as I started making an okay amount of money off of animation, I picked up a couple of power tools, built out my wood shop, got my then boyfriend, now husband, on board, and we started making things like tables or little cutting boards and simple, designed plant stands, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's really fun and also important to have creative hobbies that your career doesn't hinge on.
Yeah.
The best part of it is.
What's your favorite power drill?
What's my favorite power drill?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Power drill or power tool in general?
Either one.
Oh, I'm a dab hand with the jigsaw. I'm a
Okay.
sucker for jigsaw, yeah, but it's I don't know. Maybe for pragmatic reasons, the just the old drill gun for the variety of uses.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why do you ask? Are you big into woodworking?
No, I've got a workshop, and I like to build my own stuff, or do my own repairs, and I love to drill. I love to screw stuff into, I have um, and it's I think it might come out of working in animation. And
Yeah,
I had a hippie uncle who was a woodworker, and so and he lived with us for a while in our guest house. And there was always like really strong smoke, smell of pot coming from it. But he had all the, he had all, and and my grandfather and he teamed up, and when I was, I don't know, like 5 or 6, they made this beautiful, beautiful. I remember they painted it aqua, and it was a table. It was a table just my height. It had a clamp on it. It had like I wish there was a picture of it, but it had everything you would need based on their experience for, with the, my grandpa was very handy. He built his own house and um that type of thing. So I think I inherited a little bit of that do it yourself attitude.
that's a dangerous attitude to have. My husband likes to this gene that I carry with it, the how hard could it really be gene, and that's not necessarily a beneficial thing to always have because I always want to DIY everything.
Yeah.
Uh, But I think you're right. I think a lot of people in animation do have that. And maybe it comes from working with their hands, or maybe it just comes from working in a hard industry. And so you want to do other hard things. But I think it's really cool to see what comes out of it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Getting to know like what's under the hood of a craft
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Take it
so
apart. Take.
yeah. And
Mhm.
then so working on some stop motion project, I would always go bug the guys in the shop who were building the sets and everything. And I think this was at Skellington. There's a guy, the shop manager, Bo Henry, who's like he's kind of a cowboy. He has a big mustache and we were comparing tools, and he goes, "Oh, hey, check this out." And it was an impact driver, you know. And
Mhm.
so and it screwed like a wood screw, like a long wood screw into a 2x4, just like it was butter, like and I was like, oh. And so I don't know, I think the tool fetish probably started with Bo Henry, and that
Into a mass. Yeah. We have an extra bedroom that we've converted into what we call the garage, and that's just full of power tools at this point.
yeah, yeah. Do you have any projects going now? Any
Yeah, actually, I have a friend who asked me to build a table for her. It is a secret surprise, so I won't say too much about it. But
yeah.
it's a really cool and very meaningful piece that she wants to give to a friend of hers. So I'm excited to be building that one. And it's a lot of newer techniques to me. I'm doing veneer for the first time, so
Mm,
excited trying that out. But I'm excited. That's all.
yeah. Best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. May your veneer remain sheen for ages to come. And there's I got to meet a Danish. He was actually, I think he was the son of Arne Jacobsen, this like really famous Danish woodworker. He made these classic chairs. If you look up his name, you'll see that all his furniture that he designed, you recognize. But so he he also, inherited this kind of ability and drive to make his own furniture. He made this, and I like the using and reusing materials.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Upside.
yeah, so he took like a sheet and a half of 4x8 plywood, and he cut half of it into these kind of like triangle legs, and he made slots in the top, the full sheet of 4x8, and then the legs kind of had this triangle configuration joined in the middle like a slot, and they slotted into the tabletop, and it looked so cool. But it was obviously just these two, sheet and a half of
Yeah.
plywood. And he said it was very popular, and it was very easy to kind of dismantle, but sturdy. That was the thing that really impressed me. And so he brought it to furniture conventions and stuff like that, and people would ooh and ah, and it was so against convention. It was just raw and functional. And then he said he turned his back for like 10 minutes. It was gone.
No way.
Someone had stolen because it was so easy to
Yeah,
disassemble.
about that. Yeah. Oh, what a shame.
Yeah.
Did he rebuild it?
Uh, I don't know. I just it just seemed like such a cool design. I'm surprised I haven't seen it. I'm sure there's similar things out there now, but yeah, might be on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah.
That was about 20 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got this museum idea. That's really awesome. I'm happy to help in any way, connect you to, anybody that.
So much. You've been a huge help so far. I've met some really cool folks there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And then so you sound like you're fairly settled in Atlanta.
I am, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We love it here. My house is here. I'm taking this call from my house, but and we just have some really great communities that are based here. Yeah, I'm not saying I would never move, but
Hmm.
certainly for now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who knows what the future holds? But and what is the name of your company, Anna?
Line Coast, yes.
Line Folk.
Yeah, we wanted something very, simple, straightforward, something that, got the idea across, but also the word folk was really important to me because I think it evokes a sense of both folk art, something that is handmade, and also the folks that make it. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, and that was really my hope in opening that studio was the studio rather is I think so much of my career in animation has been made more difficult uh, by people who aren't putting the folks first. And
hmm,
I think it's to your point about the name of your podcast, Prisoner's Dilemma. I think it's often made more difficult for us to put people first. But I think that karma will inevitably, bite people in the ass, excuse me, saying that. So I was my hope to open this and have it be just sort of a safe and fun, genuine workspace for people to work in animation. Because it cannot be that hard to just be nice to people. And as it turns out, it's not. It's really not that complicated. You can choose every day to just be kind of nice to people, and they mostly like you for it.
yeah.
It tends to pay off.
Amen, sister. Are you familiar with the work of Owen Clate?
The name is familiar. Tell me why.
Please, look him up if you haven't seen him already. He did this amazing animated piece. It's like a revolving piece of wood. I think it's a section of a tree basically. And he basically carved it as it's revolving. He carved it. So it's like as it's revolving and coming around, there's an addition. I think that's how it is. It's fascinating. It's so cool. And he was an animator on she's stop more animator on at Skellington on Nightmare Before Christmas and James. But amazing way he married the two art forms.
Yeah, the stop mo community is endlessly creative. I'm continuously in awe.
Yeah, yeah, and the project that I'm working on now that's based in Kosovo, they have a grand vision. They want to construct the whole film, puppets and everything, out of recycled materials. So and recycled plastic mainly.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, they have a whole diagram and talk about, like that kind of construction fetish of diagrams and process and everything. They've mapped it out. I think it's going to be really cool. I'm really excited about it. But
Featured in the museum.
hell yeah,
Love to.
yeah. It's also it's if it comes into fruition, it's a really good combination of like the latest technology because it probably use rapid prototype and just classic stop motion animation look and techniques and stuff like that. So, anything you want to plug, Anna? Anything that before we wrap it up?
That's it. I think,
Yeah.
be nice to each other. I think so much of animation is such a people game, right? And not even a game. It's just a matter of taking care of the people that are on your crew and are just sort of part of your social crew. I think times are still hard for a lot of folks out there, and hopefully they're on the rise now. But I think in the meantime, keeping our heads up, staying creative, getting our right amount of creative rest,
Mm,
having outside of animation is so important. Come visit my museum. When it's working title for now is the American Museum of Animation, but
nice.
a working title. I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah. And then what would people expect if they were using line folk or working with line folk?
Line Folk, we're a small studio, but we love taking on projects. We can scale 2 projects. So that's www.linefolk.com for anybody who wants to check us out. We just love getting creative. That's really it. We have an awesome community of fabulous artists here in Atlanta that I
Hmm.
love using. Yeah, if you're interested in any size of project where there's certainly enough people in animation within Atlanta to get that done. So please feel free to reach out, and we'll hop on a call and figure out what we can make work. And if it's not with Line Folk, then I'm so happy to recommend any number of really fabulous studios, both in Atlanta and across the US, that'll make it happen.
Yeah. Cool. And you do 2D effects still
I
at
do,
this?
I do a little of everything at this point. Yeah, 2D effects is still where my heart is. But I direct, I produce, I'll do character if I have to, twist my arm. I'll paint backgrounds or whatever. My original training was in a lot of portraiture and physical landscape art, and
Oh,
so
okay.
I got stuck with the fine art side of things. But the branch out has been fun. We had a music video air, I guess, a little while ago. It's called Beauty
Mhm.
by the band Krill, and that was a really fun passion project to be working on. We've had a couple other pieces come out that have been either for Georgia State, for the Georgia court system, doing sort of educational materials for school children. Some of it is commercial work, and that can be fun too. We're a fun group of people to work with, I promise.
I believe it. Well, thank you for roaming and ranging in conversation with me,
Of
Anna.
course, for being my roaming partner here. This is
Yeah. And seriously down the line, if maybe, because I just in that kind of all-encompassing design um geek geekdom or fascination obsession. It'd be awesome if we could do like a group chat if it works out organically with my friend Matt, just to talk about,
I would love that. Yeah,
yeah,
I would really love that.
what it takes
Uh,
to design a building, alter a building, come up with
I've been slow to reach out to Matt, just because of the timeline that I'm working with. But I would really love to pick his brain for sure.
yeah.
That's an
Oh,
awesome skills to have.
yeah. No pressure, no pressure. Just that's my selfish desire.
I truly not selfish at all. It's very giving, and I'll accept what I can take. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hope to see you soon.
Sounds good. Do you want to stop recording or just?
I'll stop.
Okay.